Hey, welcome to Read Out Loud, the book on the Heavenly Treatise. No, on the Heavenly Spheres, a treatise in traditional astrology. I'm not tired at all, but we have one section left to finish chapter 8, and we're going to get it done tonight. So, turn your page, open your book, and turn to page 129. Antisha. There There are other types of interactions between signs, of which the most well-known and used are antitia. Antitia, antition in the singular, is a term of Greek origin meaning shade or reflex. It is said that two zodiacal points are in antition when they occupy positions that are equidistant from the celestial equator. This happens when they are at the same distance from the solstice points, the Cancer-Capricorn axis. The planets situated in Cancer have their mirror points in Gemini and vice versa. In the same way, the Antitia connects to the pairs Leo-Taurus, Libra-Pisces, Scorpio-Aquarius, Sagittarius-Capricorn. Antitia is also called days of equal light because the sun transits degrees that are in antition and the duration of daylight is the same as those 2 times of the year. That means the degree of antition are the points in the zodiac where the amount of daylight given off by the sun on those days is equal. Calculating antitia. The mirror image relationship establishes a correspondence not only between the signs, but also between the degrees and minutes of each sign. Thus, a planet situated in the very first degree of a sign will have antition with the very last degree of the reflected sign. For example, 1 degrees of Virgo has antition with 29 of Aries. The same occurs with the other signs, with all the other signs. 2 degrees of Virgo corresponds to 28 Aries. 3 degrees, oh, yeah. 3 degrees to 27, and so on successively. The minutes are mirrored in the identical manner. 0 degree of 1 minute is one sign has a centurion at 29 degrees and 59 minutes of the mirror sign. 0 degrees and 2 minutes has antition with 29 degrees and 58 minutes. And 3 minutes has antition with 29 degrees, 57 minutes, and so on successively. To obtain the antition degree, merely subtract 30 from the degrees and minutes of the planetary position. For instance, to calculate the antition of Venus at 8 degrees Scorpio, 20 minutes. Find the mirror case in the case of Scorpio, and we look at the little chart. You can look at the line that goes to Aquarius. Subtract that degree from 30 degrees. Subtract the minute from 60. To subtract 8 degrees and 20 minutes from 30 degrees, 0 minutes, borrow 1 degree and turn it into minutes so that 30 degrees becomes 29 degrees and 60 minutes. Then 29 degrees and 60 minutes minus 8 degrees and 20 minutes equals 21 degrees and 40 minutes. Thus we see that Venus at 8 degrees Scorpio and 20 minutes projects its antition to 21 degrees Aquarius and 40 minutes. The point, you can also convert the antitia using the tables in figure 26. The point opposite the antition is called contra antition. For example, Venus, 8 degrees Scorpio, 20 minutes, projects its antition to 21 degrees Aquarius, 40 degrees. Its counter antition in the opposite degree of 21 degrees and Leo, 40 minutes. And so it's right here. Note the counter antition may also be thought of as a projection along 0 degrees Aries and 0 degrees the Libra axis. So from one cardinal sign opposition to the other cardinal sign opposition. Or the equinoxes and the solstices. In practical terms, Anticia and counter-Anticia are only considered if there are planets or other chart factors activating those points. They are considered complements to interpretation and not interpreted by themselves. Two planets in Antition are thought of as a type of conjunction. This combination of planets in Antition is less intense than a bodily conjunction, and for it to be considered, it must occur within 2 degrees of being exact. For example, consider Mars at 19 degrees Aries and the Moon at 10 degrees Virgo. Mars projects an antition of 11 degrees Virgo, and the Moon projects the antition to 20 degrees of Aries. Therefore, Mars and the Moon are in antition. This means that the Moon is going to take on martial characteristics and that Mars is going to acquire a greater volatility characteristic of the Moon. Just as in a conjunction, the anticia fuse the qualities of both planets. The principal difference being that with antition, it's possible to combine very different houses and signs, which does not occur with a normal conjunction. Counter-Anticia is interpreted as a type of opposition. Using the previous example, Mars at 19 degrees Aries would have its counter-Antition with 11 degrees of Pisces. If Mercury is at 12 degrees Pisces, it is in counter-Antition or contra-Antition to Mars, which translates to a certain irritability in communication. There are 2 cases of Anticia in the horoscope of Friedrich Nietzsche. The first is between Mercury at 4 degrees Libra and Jupiter 26 Pisces. These 2 planets form a very weak aspect at the end of an orb. However, the presence of the antition, which is practically exact, reinforces the connection between them. The antition, Mercury-Jupiter, links the objective mind, Mercury in Libra, with the idealistic and devotional strain, Jupiter in Pisces, devotional. A contrasting combination that is well mirrored in its orb. Note that the involvement of Mars in this configuration, conjunct Mercury and opposite Jupiter, contributes to the bellicose and critical tone so very characteristic of this author. The second case of Anticia involves Saturn at 0 degrees Aquarius and the ascendant at 29 degrees of Scorpio. The personal expression, the ascendant, becomes colored by a strong Saturnian component, which manifests in the severe depressions that shaped his whole life. Other relationships between the signs. Besides the Anticia, there are other non-aspectual relationships between signs that are presented in the tradition as targeted concepts applied in very specific context. The most well-known is the relationship between signs they command and those that obey. According to Ptolemy, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, and Virgo are signs that command, because when the sun is with them, the day is longer than the night. And since they correspond to the spring and summer months, complementing, these are the signs that obey: Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. I'm trying to think of Aquarius as obeying. It's interesting. Which correspond to autumn and winter months, since when the sun is with them, the nights are longer than the days. This type of attribution is used to compare the power between the signs. This type of attribution is used to compare the power between signs. For instance, we can compare the relative strength of the moon, emotions, and Mercury, reason in a natal chart. If Mercury is in a sign that commands, and the moon is in a sign of obedience, then reason tends to prevail over emotions. In the inverse situation, the emotions easily overshadow reason. I have a moon in Gemini and a Mercury in Libra. And they're in a white trine. So my moon is commanding my Mercury. But the Mercury's in charge. Huh. Well, Mercury is the ruler of the moon because it's moon in Gemini, but Gemini is in a commanding position to Libra. I don't understand where they would layer that in. The same type of reasoning was followed for other considerations, as is the case with signs that observe and those that listen. Together with Antisha, these techniques add new data to the study of the planetary relationships and enrich the interpretation of a horoscope. Note, the Antisha presented here as examples are associated with aspects. The first corresponds to the weak opposition and the second with the out of sign sextile. However, an Antisha does not necessarily have to involve an aspect. Their interpretation is valid in and of itself and is independent of the aspects. I'm going to read this little subnote. There are some variations on the concept of commanding and obeying. In this manual, we present the most utilized and for which we have some examples. Some Arabic authors associate the signs that command to the signs of the right ascension and the signs obeying the signs of oblique ascension. This is a slightly different opinion. You guys, that's chapter 8. All right. See you next time with chapter 9. Thanks again for following along with your book. Thanks.